Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lok Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Desh Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bhedu Vibhagine व्योमवत्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः कुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वनिवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः आप्यायन्तु मम अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनिरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्माः ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Chant the first four verses of the second chapter. Yadi manyase subedeti dabhramevapi nunam tvam vetta brahmano rupam yadasya deveshvatanu mimamsyameva te manye viditam. Naham manye subedeti no na vedeti vedacha no nastadveda tadveda no na vedeti vedacha yasya matam tasya matam matam yasya na vedasaha avijñātam vijānatam vijñātam avijānatam pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam hi vindate atmana vindate viryam vidyaya vindate mritam. So we come to the verse that we have been hinting at as an important one since we started this segment of Kena Upanishad. And it really summarizes the very sequence of thoughts and concepts from the very beginning, starting with Kene Shitam Patati Manaha, etc. So this is kind of like the end one. So we will go over this quite a bit. And so I'm going to take the help of a couple of very beautiful commentaries on both this particular verse, Pratibodhitam Matam, as well as the concepts leading to this particular verse. Pretty much same thing, but slight differences between them. And so the one, really three texts that I will do. One, of course, is the one we have been following, which is the Shankara Bhashya of Kena Upanishad, which comes in Pada Bhashya as well as Vakya Bhashya. And we have pretty much followed that up to this point. But on this section, which is a very subtle one to unfold, I'm going to take the help of the text from Anubhuti Prakasha. So this is a text which is enormously helpful. And not surprisingly, because the author of this is none other than the Panchadashikara, Swami Vidyaranyaji. And, I find his explanations and his way of unfolding the truth to be so personally enriching. It just reaches out to the heart of me. And particularly this combination of Swami Vidyaranya and his Sanskrit verses. By the way, the Anubhuti Prakasha is a 3-volume book which comments in his own verses on many Upanishads, including Kena Upanishad. So that's what Anubhuti Prakasha is. And again, if we had the time, it will be wonderful to go through that. I might take it up, small portion at a time. And then the commentary on that by Swami Maheshananji. This is a wonderful combination of those two. As you know, Panchadashi itself, which we are going to take up, I'm very familiar with, and you are to a certain extent. I've spoken a lot from that. Anubhuti Prakasham also, Prakasha, I keep saying Prakasham. Anubhuti Prakasha also is something very similar. This beautiful combination of Swami Vidyaranya and Swami Maheshananda unfolding this, and we will see some samples of that unfolding that relates to the Kena Upanishad in general, and this verse number 4, Pratibodha Viditam Matam in particular today. Okay, so that's what I intend doing, and it's possible that we may run over to the next class, but doesn't matter. I want to make sure that it's complete. Okay, so let me start with, it will all come together, but let me just start from somewhere to kind of revise this whole concept. So in the Kena Upanishad, first chapter, verses number 3 and 4, I'm going to refer back to it. The first one, of course, was the question from the student, as you know, Kene Shatam Patati Preshitam Manaha, Kena Pranav Pratama Praiti Yuktaha, Kene Shatam Vacham Imam Vadanti Chakshu Shotram Kau Devo Yunakti. And then the answer to that was Shrotrasya Shrotram Manaso Manoyat Vachoha Vacham Sau Pranasya Pranaha Chakshushascha Chakshuhu Atimuchya Dhiraha Pretya Asmat Lokat Amrita Bhavanti. And so it's a summary verse. It's kind of like it's a opening verse. Remember, we were taking this Shadlinga Vichara in Brahma Sutra. How do you know what is the main topic? And so there we saw there were 6 different ways of looking at the importance of the main topic. Upakrama, Upasamhara, Abhyasa, Arthavada, etc., etc. All 6 of them we saw. Upapattihi, and then Apurvata. So Upakrama, Upasamhara, and so the beginning and the end. So this is the beginning. And so it's a summary of what is to be told. He says that the one that you are asking about, how is this, the world runs? Does it run by itself, or is it at the prerana, at the mercy, at the behest, for the sake of something else? So that was the question. Keneshatam patati preshitam manaha. So he says yes, it does. So he says, who is that? Who is the person who is behind doing all this? So he says, start with this. Shotrasya shrotram. It is the very essence of hearing. So the hearing is the hearing is an interesting thing because it's a very complicated phenomena. but it is not possible without consciousness. And so just like in an appliance, which is a very complicated set of different things, but all of that really is enlivened by electricity. And so the electricity is the one that gives the power to the various electrical gadgets. So similarly here also, our hearing is a gadget, seeing is a gadget, touching is a gadget, etc. All the five sense organs. And what makes it go is Atma, the consciousness. And if you do, so here in some way, all three, Shravanam, in this verse number 2, Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam are included in a very subtle form. So Shravanam is the very essence of what is running the whole show. Just like you are running the whole show in your dream. And so the dream character was saying, who are we? Why come here? How come we are talking to each other and so on? Is there somebody behind it? And the person would say, yes. This Jiva guy who's dreaming, Jiva gal, this person, he or she is behind all this. And so, which is the truth? It really is the truth. And so that is what the Shotrasya Shotra. So that is the Shravanam, meaning that this is the truth about it. Then the word Dhiraha is the Mananam. So Dhiraha means one who is, and this topic is going to come up today quite a bit, so this word is very relevant. Dhiraha means someone who doesn't get just excited about knowing this, but really wants to get to the bottom of this amazing vision that the Shravanam has given. So this is what Mananam does. So Dhiraha means one who is committed in turning this Shravanam into something which is present all the time, not just once in a while. This is the Dhiraha. And if you are able to do that, the Phalam is given. Why should I do this? This seems like a very interesting but a very deep and very difficult subject. So he says, Pretya asmat lokat amrita bhavanti. So he says, you leave aside all of the limitations of this samsara. If you are able to do it, there is nothing like it. You become totally independent and free. So that is the Nididhyasanam. All three of them are summarized in this first Upakrama verse number 2. Then the explanation starts. So there he says, Na tatra chakshuh gacchati, na vag gacchati, no manaha, na vidmaha, na vijanimaha, yatha etad anushishyat. So he says, it is so, and this one, number 3 and number 4 also should be taken along with it. Anyadeva tad viditat, atho aviditat api, aviditat adhi, iti shushruma purvesham yenaha tadvyata chakshire. So he says that this Atma that we are now beginning to understand, you should see why this is to be explained this way. And what do you mean by explained this way? Because this is different from the known. Just like anything that we know, something specific that we know. You know a house, you know a car, etc. So that is a known thing. And how do you know it? By using your indriyas. your organs of actions and organs of sense organs. And the whole world can be known by that. But in this case, na tatra chakshuh gacchati. Yahan par there the eyes cannot go. So you cannot use one indriya. Similarly, it means na vak gacchati, even words do not go. All of them cannot go. So it is different from the known. But something very interesting. So that means that it must be unknown. You can say that it is anything which is known is not the Atma. So that means anything which is unknown is the Atma? No. Atho avidita tadi. That even things that you don't know, it is not that. And this is something very simple to understand, and you can practice this. That you know some things and you don't know some things. You know certain languages. There are thousands of languages. Certainly hundreds, if not thousands. It must be thousands. Dialects and so on. I was listening to a podcast about a native language in Peru. And so this person who had gone there to do, he was just in a pleasure trip, and he found this language which is spoken by, it's about 4 million people that speak it, but it is not really used at all. That it is not written down very well, but it's a well-researched language. I forget the name of the language. So like that, there are so many languages that I don't know. So there are languages that I know, and there's languages that I don't know. But the interesting thing is that I know what languages I know, and I know what languages I don't know. So if somebody asks you a question, do you know some obtuse language from Lima, Peru, name of this, then you say, no, I don't know it. So you say, how can you say that you don't know it? He says, what do you mean? I don't understand this. I know. This is an important thing to see. So this is the very definition of the word param. We went over this last class. So the param here means that it is above knowing something and not knowing something. It is different from the known and different from the unknown. It is in fact common to both of them. It is through which it is known and by which it is unknown. Through which it is known and unknown, by which is known and unknown. That is something that you have to, this is the nature of the Atma. So here it means that this is the Sakshi. Sakshi means the very essence of this knowledge. This is what Atma is. So, but then I want to really understand it, and I want to grasp it, because it is too vague for me at this point that, yes, it helps me to see that I can see what I know, I can see what I don't know. Therefore, as we were talking about it last class, this is the unlimited. It is smaller than the smallest, bigger than the biggest, expressing the same thing. I can know some languages which is a small set, There's a lot of things that I don't know, but they are both dependent on me knowing whether it's a small or a big. And so that one is easy for me to grasp, relatively easy. But then the question is, I want to, this is just too vague. What is the parameters of this Atma? Okay, you've given me an entry and I accept it. But then I know really everything about it. I need to know everything about it. And especially if you say that dhiraha atimuccha dhiraha amrita bhavanti. By knowing this, you become free. I don't feel I'm free. So that means I don't know. It seems like it. And so I want to know, how do I know it? That's what I want to know. Not just casual introduction to it, which is good that I have got some introduction to it, that one which is different from the known, different from the unknown. Good, that much I can get. But then, this has not set me free. So that means there is lots of other things that I need to know about this thing. If this is true, what you say is true, then I need to really, you can say I need to experience it. So this is what we will say. So in saying that, the teacher, by the way, says, even in number 3 and in number 4, that na vidmaha na vijanimaha yatha etadanushishya. Why is it that it cannot be seen? Because our normal method of knowing and not knowing fails us. Why does it fail us? Na tatra chakshu gacchati na vag gacchati no manaha. It's outside the sense organs. All of the indriyas. Because the indriyas are only good for in generating what is called Shakti Vritti. We have done all this I'm just underscoring that. So the Shakti Vritti is where you can know something through guna, through kriya, through jati, sambandha, etc. So you can say someone kriya. So kriya means by doing something. You can say, there's a person who is just standing in front of you, and this is a very famous restaurant. And at the end of the meal, person comes up, and you can say, you know who he is? He is the chef and owner of this restaurant. You enjoyed the food and everything. He's the one who made the food. He's the chef. And you say, wow. So this is called guna. Or you can say sambandha. Do you know who that is? That is the daughter of such and such. The daughter of Vice President of America. Really? Oh, wow. Now all of a sudden you have some idea about the person. So this is what is called Shakti Vritti. So the Shakti Vritti depends upon some very specific aspects of the person that you can see, touch, feel, think about, and so on. And so Atma is not the purview of any one of these senses. It is not this is called agocharam. In Sanskrit, this word is used. It's called agocharam. Gocharam means one which is within the purview, and agocharam means which is not within the purview. The word gocharam also is a very interesting one. Gochara comes from where the cow grazes. Go means in Sanskrit cow. Imagine this how close it is. Cow and go. And in Hindi, Gai. I don't know what it is in some of the other vernacular languages in India. But anyway, go means cow. Chara means the one which grazes, which moves around in a very specific area. It's called gochara. And so the world you can see is gochara. But beyond that, there is a number of things that you cannot go. You don't know what is there in a distant galaxy. Not possible to. It's there, but you don't know it. So it's called agocharam. So is Atma like one of those which is far away? No. The Atma is something very peculiar because it is the nearer than the nearest, and yet you don't know. Funny situation. Totally funny. Amazing situation. Not only just funny. Actually not funny because not knowing, I have a lot of problems in life. A lot of problems by not knowing. So anyway, going back to this. So this is called Shakti Vritti. So there is a method of knowing what things there are through Shakti Vritti. And because Atma is not na tatra shakshuhu gacchati, na vag gacchati, no manaha, etc., it is not done through Shakti Vritti. But that means that it is not possible to know? No. It is possible to know. We can use Lakshana Vritti. So this is what is called Atadvyavritti Lakshanam. Atadvyavritti Lakshanam. Very interesting word, really very important, very important. Atadvyavritti. So Tat means Brahman. The Atma means Tat. Tat Tvamasi. So Atma is Brahman. So Brahman. Let's say Tat. Atat means, so Tat also means Brahman, which is the truth, which is the reality. Atat means one which is not the reality. Reality means what? Reality means one that is independently Satyam. Is alone called Tat. One which is not independently Satyam is called Atat. Typical example, fire is Tat. The warmth of the fire, the heat of the fire is Tat. The heat of water which has been boiling is Atat. You cannot say that it's not boiling. It is boiling, but it's not its own. It is borrowed. It's called Atat. So, Vyavritti means systematically eliminating, rejecting. Vyavritti. It's kind of like, somebody comes in and he says, sometimes it happens when you go to, I remember this happened to me. I mean, this is a very common thing, nothing major. When I used to go to the Equinox for my exercises, gym, that's the word I'm looking for. I am telling you, words, they are starting to go away from me. I can visualize the whole thing, but the word is not coming very well. So this word gym, it took me a while to understand. This is what's happening. It's a very, very interesting, very beautiful thing. And how to negotiate with it, I think I've told you about all this. And I'm okay with it. Completely okay, because so what? Memory is not me. Anyway, when I used to go to the gym one time, I had a water bottle which was something that I had bought from some place. It had exactly the right, it was a steel water bottle, and I used to keep it in a place and the water would be cool and all that. And I one time walked away with it, and I said, oops, next time I go there, I'll find out. So I called them up and, I was there. And I says, I've lost this bottle. So he says, okay, what does it look like? So I described it to him. And he says, okay, just wait. We have a number of bottles in our lost and found area, and I'll go bring it. So he comes out holding two bottles, which look like what I have described. Is this the one? And I said, no. He says, oh, okay, there's some more. Let me go back again. Because there's so many of them, he can't carry all of them at the same time. So he has to bring selectively. He comes back with another couple of bottles and says, is this the one? I said, no. So this process of rejecting, is this the one, is called vyavritti. Eliminating one by one. Finally, I got it. I think the third or fourth trip that he made, I got my own bottle back. And but anyway, the process of elimination, this is called vyavritti. So atad vyavritti rupena lakshanam. This is called lakshana vritti. So the first one, just to summarize, the normal one that we utilize for knowing and not knowing, etc., is shakti vritti. But shakti vritti alone is not necessary. Lakshana vritti can also give you that. One interesting example of that, just to give you what lakshana vritti is. And really the verse number 4, na tatra chakshuh gacchati na vag gacchati. Starting with this, then verse number 4, pratibodha viditam matam is lakshana vritti. This is how it is to be known. So there is an interesting example about lakshana vritti. And Swami Maheshananji gave this. So he has an amazing knowledge of the various, he's very familiar with Puranas. And of course, as scholar in Upanishads and Brahma Sutra and all that, I think his extensive knowledge of the various texts and how he quotes it and so on, very impressive. So he digs out this story from somewhere. He doesn't say from where. He just says that he uses the word prasiddha. What does it say? This is a prasiddha. Anyway, some prasiddha story. Prasiddha story means it is famous, it's well known. It means I've heard of others also using them. So the story goes that Rama and Lakshmana were standing talking to each other. And some distance from there was Sita, who was surrounded by the wives of rishis. This is a very beautiful thing. I'm so happy that it's good that the rishis are not pictured as one who are celibates and all sitting away from everybody. No, they're married. I was going to say happily married, but marriage means some give and take and so on. The rishis were all married, not all, but many of the rishis were married. This is a wonderful encouragement for those of us that are not taking sannyasa but are really teaching in the middle of this. Anyway, so Sita was surrounded by the wives of the rishis, as Swami Maheshananji says. And one of the wives of the rishi says, Sita, out of those two people, I don't know them. Somebody has told me that one of them is Rama and the other one is Lakshmana. Which one is Rama? So as you know this, you may know this, that in our tradition, which still holds, first of all, you don't point directly to a respected person. And secondly, you don't directly address the second person with the name, with a respected person with the name. I am really very blessed, really honestly, that my wife never calls me directly with Vijay. Never. It's not possible for her. She will somehow, when she's talking to others, she can say, Vijay also feels the same way. She doesn't use the word, my husband feels the same way. It'll look very funny to others. But when she is with me and in the presence of everybody else, she never uses my word, my name. She will say things like, by the way, we forgot to, she just uses pronouns and no direct one. And so there also is so many beautiful stories pertaining to this formation, and it makes us laugh. He says, there is one story unrelevant to this, where there was this woman who was always chanting, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namah Shivaha, Om Namah Shivaya, etc. She was doing that. And she got married to a man whose name was Narayana. Now she is, so Swamiji Maheshanji makes a kind of like a fun of a person who is both very traditional but also really not well read. So she thinks that now that I'm married, I should stop calling Narayana, not knowing that this is a different Narayana, this is her husband. But she will not call him Narayana. So she will say, Babu's father. Some indirect ones she would know. So she says that she was in very bad shape. She could not call him Narayana. Anyway, so here Sita is asked by the wife of the Rishi, which one of these two is Rama, your husband? And as you know from the annals of history, Rama was dark-skinned and Lakshmana was light-skinned, relatively speaking. So Sita replied to the Rishi's wife's question, the dark-skinned one is my brother-in-law. Sorry, the white-skinned one is my brother-in-law. So everybody said, okay, we know. This is an example of is called Lakshana Vritti. Why is it is a Lakshana Vritti? This is Atat Vyavritti Lakshana. Why is it a Lakshana Vritti? Because Sita did not say the dark-skinned one is my husband, is Rama. That would be Shakti Vritti. Shakti Vritti means that it is directly perceivable. But if the conditions are correct, you can indicate it through Lakshana without bringing out the guna of the person. This is called Lakshana Vritti. So now look at this. Let's go forward. It's been told to us that if you look at the entire life's experiences, entire life, you should see that the experiences of life can be easily and definitely divided without any compromise. Pakka, what we say in Hindi is pakka, into two segments, Atma and Anatma. That's what life's experiences are all about. Atma and Anatma. I and not I. This is where the Viveka needs to be done. But the constituents of Viveka means distinguishing between two things, right? So it is different from Vichara. Vichara means it negotiating a number of different modalities and bringing some clarity into it, like the Afghanistani war. There's a lot of things going on, and so we have to figure out what is right, what is wrong. Was Biden correct, or Biden says no, I did the right. All those kinds of things is called vichara. But if there are two things to distinguish between them, this is called viveka. So the viveka is done between two segments, two basic segments of life, which is atma and anatma. Got it? Okay. That being the case, we have a very interesting situation now. This is why the example of Sita and Rama and Lakshmana becomes very relevant. Because if Rama and Lakshmana were in the middle of 10 people, some of them are relatively dark skinned, some of them are relatively light skinned, some of them are wheat skinned, and so on, it would be very difficult to, you'd have to use Lakshana Vritti. You'd have to use Shakti Vritti. You see that person who's on the third from the left? Say, yes, that's Rama. So the third from the left is a Shakti Vritti. It is specific. But if there are two things, if the two people, only two people, then eliminating one of them, it's possible to positively identify the other one without any doubts. So, if the student says, tell me very definitely, you are telling me that Atma is different from the known. Say, yep, it is different from the known. You're telling me that the Atma is different from the unknown. Yep. There's nothing else left. So how will I know this? So the teacher says, we have been told very positively the identification of the Atma. So this is what is called Yatha etad anushishyat na vidmaha na vijamimaha. By doing Shakti Vritti, we don't know how to identify Atma. Therefore, the only way is given in number 4. Iti shushruma purvesham ye naha tat vyata chakshire. Because then the student can say, wait a second, how am I so? You're giving me an answer and you're not telling me how to do it. He says, I didn't say that how to do it. In fact, this is how the positive identification of Atma has been handed over without Shakti Vritti. And this is what I am going to tell you. And so he says, Atad vyavritti rupena lakshana vritti. You just see that there are two things, Atma and Anatma, and you are not the Anatma. And this also has to be supported by logic. You cannot say, no, you're not the Anatma. And say, why? Oh, I don't know, just accept it. No, it's not what we're saying. Don't you see you are not the Atma? I'm saying, don't you see you are not the Anatma? At one time you were not that. For a short time you are there. You can say that, I'm an Indian. You're an Indian? Yeah, I'm an Indian. When did you become an Indian? Well, because when I was born, my parents were both Indian. Okay, all right, I accept that. What about before that? He says, before that? What do you mean before that? I was not born. So that means your status of being Indian is relatively recent. What about the history of the last 10,000 years? Where were you? He says, I have no idea. In fact, I don't even know whether I was there or not. So, anatma, or you can say the other thing. Okay, so you are an Indian. That is you. That means you will be staying as an Indian. Actually, you are not even an Indian when you are sleeping or dreaming, and much less when you die. So there is a whole set of logic to say you are not the anatma. Because the anatma keeps changing, it has a beginning and an end. It is just like telling a bangle that is telling gold, you are not the bangle. You are something more than the bangle. The bangle had a specific beginning and a specific end. That's not who you are. You are the very content of both of them. So you are not the anatma. This is what is. So that means there's only one thing left. There's only two things, and I am not one of them. There's only Rama and Lakshmana, and I'm not Lakshmana. Do I have to tell you that through directly pointing out with a finger? You don't have to. It's clear. If there were not only two people, it may not have been clear, but because there are only two people, it is clear. I accept. So here now we launch a slightly different way of looking at this, and through this now, hopefully I will be able to answer the question that Chandra had last week, that it is clear to me that I am different from the limited and I'm unlimited, but I don't understand how come I know when I don't know. This I don't understand. Either I know or I don't. So that whole answer, and I was telling you that I will have to wait for this class. And so the next way of covering the material is hopefully answering that doubt. If not, then we can talk some more. Okay? All right. So here's a situation. When we say Atma is the very content of all knowledge. It is knowledge itself. It is different from a specific knowledge, different from a non-specific knowledge. It is knowledge. Like it is different from a specific space enclosed in a room, specific, or a non-specific enclosure. A non-specific enclosure means maybe a tree which is moving, which is in the wind. And there is some kind of a temporary shade. It is a non-specific. I'm just making up some, you can make up your own examples. So the space is neither a specific nor a non-specific. It is the very basis of both the specific as well as the non-specific. So here we say that the Atma is different from the knower, drashta, pramata. There is a knower. So when I say, I know, you are asked the question, what did you have for breakfast this morning? And you can say, I had some toast and I had some fruits. So you now are the knower of what you had for breakfast. Is that the Atma? So we say no. The Atma is different from the knowing drashta, knowing pramata, the knower of the breakfast is different from the Atma. How is it different from the Atma? From the I. Atma means I. So it's different in many ways, but one of them is readily seen. The knower person requires the sense and the organs of action to be called a knower. In other words, the drashta, so I'm going to use the Sanskrit word from now on, not the knower, but knower equals drashta. The person who knew that I had some breakfast and what I had for breakfast is called the knower. And that is called drashta. So the difference between drashta and the Atma is this. The drashta is dependent on the sense organs to know. The Atma does not need anything because it is already the nature, swarupa of jnanam, knowledge. It is already knowledge. It doesn't need to know anything. Knowing and not knowing is not the swarupa. It is adjuncts to it. It is upadhi. Like, for example, the room is the upadhi for the space, for the room space, but the space doesn't need any upadhi. Only a relative definition of something needs an upadhi. Upadhi means the one that seemingly limits the space without really doing it. It's called upadhi. But the upahita, which is the space, doesn't matter. If the upadhi is, the space gets smaller if you enclose the room in it? No. So the Atma doesn't need any sense organs to know. The drashta needs a sense organ to know. Okay? So now we can, having known this, having covered this point, we can go to the point where knowing not not knowing well is equal to not knowing. So what happens is, in the beginning of the second chapter, is the assertion by the teacher, because the teacher knows. The teacher knows from the student whether the student has gotten a good sense of what is the truth. And how do you know? How can you test it? So this is all important in knowing this. How do I know that I know? How do I know I don't know? And all that. If by knowing you act free as a Jivan Mukta, and we'll go into more into this. I'm not just going to not ready to summarize yet. Then you know that the person knows. In fact, this is the truth. Really speaking, if you wanted to, you cannot ask someone. You cannot ask someone, does this person really know? Do you know what he's talking about? So say, let's go ask him. Sir, we want to attend your classes, but we don't know whether you know or not. Do you know Atma? We're looking for somebody who really knows the Atma. We're trying to find someone. So let us just ask you. You are an honest person. You will tell us, won't you? So please tell us directly. Do you know the Atma or not? Whatever answer is given by the person is irrelevant. If he says, I know the Atma, there are very good chances that he doesn't know. This is exactly what this book is saying. I'm talking about a person who goes around declaring, a friend of mine just actually asked me about 6 months ago about this, what's this name, this guru? One that has a big beard and he has a turban and he's now the big... Every time there is one or two people who are the rage of the society and so on and so forth. And everybody feels, he is the person to really go to. We are all looking for someone like that, whose wisdom we can see and so on. So this friend of mine actually sent me a video of this person and said, what's his name? I can't remember his name. And said, what do you think of him? So it was nice of her to even ask me. That means she respects my views. I actually had just seen his pictures and so on, but I didn't know anything about him. So I listened to this video. And it was a very funny answer. Somebody had asked him he says, Swamiji, please tell us more about karma and karma phala. And he gave a kind of like a roundabout answer to that. Didn't quite answer the question per se, but he talked about some things that were relevant and so on. It was not a direct answer. So I wrote to this lady and said, I really don't know him very well. From this answer, I couldn't make up my mind, and it was not a very direct answer. And so I would withhold I don't know. If a person says, yes, yeah, I know, how will I know? Any person says, I don't know, how will I know? The only way to do that is to observe his life. Really, that is the only way. And if you do, what you need to see is how does he handle the various things in his life, in her life or his life. When problems occur, how do you deal with it? Does he get perturbed? When you have your own physical problems, health problems, what's your relationship to that? What's your reaction to that? From there you can say, nothing seems to faze him or her. And it's not, I see this progress over a period of time where he has studied and is getting better to a point where he is truly independent of problems in life. Then we can say that person seems to know. I don't see many people like that. Not an easy thing. So going back to this, the teacher, when he's telling the student, and so if you look at our relationships, I don't know many of you that well. Because I know some of you because we have been together for a while, so I can have an idea of who you are and so on. And I also, you write to me and I know a little bit about your life and so on and so forth. A lot of the other people I don't even know. But I can guess from the interaction with some of you that you are still on the way. You haven't reached that point yet. I don't know all of you, but I can guess with that. Okay? So here in this dialogue, this is a dialogue about the old situation where there was a student living with the teacher and asked him a question, Keneshatam patiti manaha. I just recently asked the question and so on. He hasn't even done the Shravanam. Not possible for him to know this. So now if the person says, I know what you're talking about. Yes, it is different from this. Yes. The teacher says, I don't think you know. I don't think so. I may be wrong, just to cover himself to Ishvara. Ishvara says, why are you saying this to him? Because you don't know him very well. So he can say, I may be wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. So he says, Yadi manya says, Suvedeti. Suveda iti. If you think that I know very well, Dabrameva api nunam tvam veta brahmano rupam. I don't think you are there yet. Inside he says, I know you are not there yet. But he is just being polite and says, I don't think you are there yet. Mimamsyam eva. You need to think about that. So what is meant by this? When the person says that I know, as Chandra was asking the question, how can the teacher says, I don't think you know? What is the difference between knowing and not knowing? The difference is, so listen to this carefully, this is the important thing. When you think you know, you are saying it from the standpoint of the drashta, not the Atma. Just like asking someone, you go for an interview, and this is a interview for some interaction with customers, and you've just recently come from India, and you've got this long, funny name, unpronounceable name, and so the interviewer says, "Let me ask you some question. Do you know English?" And most of us have learned English from birth, really. And so you reel off fluent English to the answer, and then the person says, okay, I understand. You know it very well. But how do you know that you know English? Because you know as a drashta. You know your mind, you know your memory, you know your vocabulary. You have some aids to help you make the decision that you know, isn't it? So when this person says, "I know the Atma," it says that mentally I can see the difference between Atma and Anatma, and it is clear to me. I know. So the teacher says, like Swami Viditatmananda used to say this is a beautiful way to introduce that. So Swami Viditatmananda says, there was a person who says, "Swamiji, Vedanta has been very helpful to me. I have made so much progress in my life. At one time I used to get angry and little things used to upset me and so on. Now I don't. Anger is gone." So Swamiji says, I can needle him by saying, "Well, sometimes anger kind of hides and it thinks it is gone, but it just means that the right conditions for anger to come up have not come up. That's all. It could be that." So the person says, "Swamiji, it's not the case. I'm telling you, I have tested myself. My wife used to criticize me. I used to get angry. Now she criticizes me and I don't get angry. That's it. I don't get angry at all. I'm telling you." So Swamiji persisted and said, I know what you're saying. Still, I will tell you, anger, the conquest of anger is not easy. It's not, you cannot just say it and so on and so forth. Then the person says, "Swamiji, you're not believing me? I cannot understand this. 3 times I've told you I don't get angry, and you are still questioning me? I don't understand this at all." Swamiji said, okay, Baba. I know you have not conquered it because you are getting angry at me. So similarly here also, when the person says, "I know very well," really, you know very well? Inside the person says he's not behaving. Because if you know very well, then you will behave as a Jivan Mukta. But I know you are not behaving as a Jivan Mukta. So clearly you don't know. And the reason that you don't know, if somebody says, "Tell me how," and all that, is because our understanding of knowledge is that I know the basics of how this works and so on, and I'm done and so on and so forth, and I'm done. And somebody You go out for lunch and your your food, your soup, you order soup. This happens with Indians. We Indians are really funny people. You know, when I see the attitude of Indians going out, they look upon all the people serving them at a lower level, just like we used to do in India. My wife and I are we just, when we go out with some other people, we are really cringing. They'll say, my water has got too much ice. Please remove it. My coffee is cold. And this was not good. And they're scolding these people. And these guys say, yes, madam. So, my God. So anyway, so you are saying, I understand Atma and so on and so forth. So you go now to lunch and the soup is cold. And then you say, what is this? Is this soup? I ordered soup. And it was expected to be hot. Really, you won't, I'm just exaggerating. Not a Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta will say, it's a bit cold. It's okay. Why should I bother them again? I'm not asking for something which is ideal. I have to just fill my stomach, and whatever comes is okay with me. So the teacher must know that really this kind of a knowledge is just a beginning. It is not there yet. So here I can just tell you the relevant passage from. I'm clearly not finishing up. I had a lot to do, but I didn't really even come close to finishing it. So we go to page 1744. So I'll first read it in Hindi, because this is all in Hindi. It's a long passage, so let me just say that in Hindi. I'll summarize it in Hindi and then explain it. So he says, हमारी ऐसी समझ हो रखी है कि जिसका भान हो वही है, जिसका भान नहीं है वो है नहीं. Means that our nature is that whatever I can objectify, it is there. If I cannot objectify, it is not there. Okay? इसलिए यद्यपि आचार्य और शास्त्र उसे शब्दों के सहारे समझा देते हैं, तथापि रहता वो मनमानी से परे ही है. शिष्य भी उसे अविषय रूप से ही समझ लेता है. So he says that even though the teachers and the Shastra, they actually teach Atma as an avishaya. It is not an object. But what comes through by pure habit is that without objectification there is nothing. And I don't know how to accept it. So they kind of internally are not happy with it. Now comes the importance. This is a very relevant passage that addresses this point. So I'll say that in Hindi, about 3 sentences. इतना अवश्य है कि अति दीर्घ काल तक एकाग्रता पूर्वक विचार चाहिए, तभी ये अविषय भाव दृढ़ होता है. अन्यथा थोड़ा बहुत समझने पर भी जैसे ही विचार रुकता है, तुरंत हम दृष्टा बन जाते हैं. जब दीर्घ काल तक विचार के साक्षी के रूप में प्रतिष्ठिता दृढ़ हो जाती है, तब अनायास साक्षी भाव में स्थिति रहती है. It's just good to know. Vaguely this is what we should know, but this is so clear as an expression of a Mahapurusha that you say yes. So what he's saying is that, so this is the answer, that how come I say I know but I don't. So he says, itna avashya hai. He says this is absolutely uncontrovertible, controversial, absolutely sure. What दीर्घ काल तक एकाग्रता पूर्वक विचार चाहिए. He says that to make the distinction between Atma and Drashta, it requires quite a while. It is not easy. Why is it not easy? Because we are used to having myself as a drashta, using my indriyas as a normal course of my life on how I take reality, and all of a sudden to have a new way of looking at it, it's not going to happen. And so what happens is that when you are closing your eyes, you for a while maybe you can say, yes, I am the Atma, I am not the Drashta. But then you go into the samsara and you immediately go into Drashta. He says, अन्यथा थोड़ा बहुत समझने पर भी जैसे कि विचार रुकता है, हम तुरंत द्रष्टा बन जाते हैं. We become a drashta. And here I will just close with an easier example to this, and we will pick it up from here. I still have not given you the crux of the fourth verse, which I will do next time, but I think we're getting very close to it. I'll give you another example, which is that supposing there is a person who is a brahmachari, who is a great student of Vedanta, and he wants to study with a Swami, and let's say his name is Gopal Subramaniam. And after studying for a while and so on and so forth, then the Swamiji gives him the Diksha. And the Diksha means that you have to give up your old name, your old identity with the family, and you have to now take up a new name, Swami Atmananda. And you now have no family, and you are just living in an ashram and so on. You have a new identity altogether. So this switch over from the old identity of Gopala Subramaniam to the new identity of Swami Atmananda, it is going to take a while. Because if somebody will say, hey Gopal, you would see that person naturally because you've known him for 20, 30 years. And if somebody says Swami Atmananda, you'll say, who's he talking about? Oh, that's me, that's right. It's a new language. It's exactly like you've been counting in Hindi for 20 years and suddenly you have to count in Chinese. It's not easy. But if you live in China for 20 years, then you will forget about the Hindi translation, Hindi counting. So this changeover from a drashta way of looking at it, and we will see what the implications are. I'm just giving you an introduction about the drashta and the atma, but I'll give you some more help with this next time when we do the fourth verse. It's going to take some dedicated way of looking at it. So if you just simply say, I know, we have to drum our fingers and say, and I can tell you this is my own personal experience too. I'm not just reading books. This is exactly what happened to me. I used to go around saying, oh, I'm a very... And here Swami Maheswaranji makes a point about being informed and being wise. They're two different things. You may be informed I thought that being informed was wisdom, but it isn't. It is not until you live a life and see how things affect you. Are you being true to the Atma or not? So that's kind of like the meaning of this doubt. And I hope that it helps you, Chandra, with this explanation. If it still does not, then you have some more questions. Feel free to ask me that. And of course, I'm also not done yet. We still have some more work to do on this. Okay? All right, so let's do a prayer and then we will close the class. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Good, good. Very happy to see all of you. First of all, it is Sadguru, out of the ones that Sri Ravi Shankar and so on. Sadguru. He's the person that I was thinking of. So Balamani, you said that the voice is not very clear sometimes. That's a concern of mine. I will have to consult with Raj Paripatyada to see if he can help me with that. Palamani says, is it right to ask, do you know Atma? Is the Atma of asking person or addressee? It's the same for both of them. And it is not, as I was saying, it is not helpful to ask someone, do you know the Atma or not? Because, first of all, a person who is respected, who you should respect, will not answer that question. For the reason that I mentioned before, because by saying that I know the Atma, how can I prove it to you? The only way I can prove it to you is through the conduct of my life. And then you can infer from that. And it's a gradual process also. It's not like one day you'll find me free. But every month, every year, you should see the shackles of life breaking off. And not about others, they may not know me, but internally I should know that this is good, I'm happening, and it just accelerates. And if it expresses itself on something that others can notice, fine. Doesn't matter to me. I'm not concerned about what people think of me. I'm more concerned about who I am. And so I would never answer the question for you, is it the Atma or not? But in any way, your question is it the Atma for both? Is the same Atma for both? Palamani, is it easy to understand one's own Atma? It all depends on where you are. It is not, it's neither easy nor difficult. It is something where you are in the spectrum of understanding. For a person who is mature, it is not that difficult. It is exactly like asking, is it easy to understand E is equal to mc squared? If you've taken physics courses before and you have been studying quantum mechanics, then it's not going to take very long for you to attend. But if you're still in kindergarten and you say how easy it is, it's not that easy. It takes a while. It all depends on the preparation of the student, not on the answer whether it is easy or difficult. Amit Garg, if a Jivan Mukta is asked a straight question by a sincere, do you know Atma, what would he, she, or say or do? Oh, exactly the same. Yeah. I told you about Swami Dayanandji's answer, which is his answer, not mine. I mean, I probably wouldn't say that, but he can say that. And what he said was, I cannot tell you whether I know the Atma, but I can make you know the Atma. So you can make some inference from that. And I wouldn't say that because I'm not sure that I can make you see the Atma. I will try to the extent that I'm clear about the knowledge, self-knowledge. To that extent, I should be able to communicate that to you. But a lot is happening between you and I hope that without any obstacles, this can be done. But there is lots of ifs and buts. Only Ishvara knows whether we can communicate. But I wouldn't say that because nobody will. I cannot say that. Swamiji can, but no, not me. But I will never tell you, and I will never say whether I know the Atma or not. I might know some of it. Some more clarity is still required. But I can tell you, one thing I can tell you is, absolutely, I am going in the right direction. I have no doubts about it. It's not as though I'm a little lost. I don't know what else to do. No. Ishvara has made sure he has equipped me with everything that I need to have to conduct my journey. And if I reach the destination before my body gives out, beautiful. If it doesn't, I am not worried. I'll be born again and Ishvara will be at my side and I will continue my journey. So the direction of the journey is unmistakable and I can see where I need to go. I can see the site of it. But whether I get there or not, time will tell. We'll see. That's the best I can say. Maithili, Guruji, I too had some confusion about known and unknown, and I think I understood better today. I appreciate you explaining it again. Thank you very much. Good. Shanti Kumar, it's a very good narration in Hindi passage by Maheshananji. So good, you know Hindi. I didn't know that. Shanti Kumar, I didn't know what your mother tongue is. But in any case, I'm happy that you know Hindi. All right, if there are no other questions, so I would There is a possibility that we may not have a class next Tuesday. My wife and I are thinking of going someplace away from this town, but we are still working on it. So for now, let's keep on this. Um, oh, one other thing since I have you, next Saturday, we are going to have a Zoom session of people with all the three classes, and Raj and I and a couple of other people are working on it, and I'm going to be sending you an email tomorrow. This is for this coming Saturday. So the Tuesday people can also participate in that. So that is for this Saturday. But whether or not we have our regular class next Tuesday or not, for now, I think let us continue that we will have it, but there is a possibility that we may not. Shanti Kumar, oh, so Telugu, yes, okay, good. Irrespective of a person's behavior, generally a person may be able to say that I'm Atma as I see my body, mind. Yes. So what I would say is, there is a term called jnani. And then the other one is Jivan Mukta or Sthita Pragya. Okay? So Jnani is, you are absolutely right. A person may be able to say, if you have done Shravanam over a length of time, then you can say, I know what's going on. This is called a Jnani. But Sthita Pragyatvam or Jivan Muktatvam takes a little more time. So yes, there's a distinction between Jnani and Sthita Pragyatvam. Amit Garg, will the Zoom session be recorded? I think so. Yeah, I understand because of the long weekend, we've been discussing all of that. And there will be multiple ones. That's not the only one that we will have. But I just wanted to get a self-introduction of the people done. And then from that point on, every 6 to 8 weeks or something, we will have a Zoom session for the class. So I'm moving towards that. But initially, it will be a get acquainted session. And we will have quite a few of them so that everybody will have a chance to participate. And yes, it will be recorded. Yep. All right. Great. Thank you. We'll see you again. Oh.